You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
I'm going to keep this week's top of show chit-chat uncharacteristically brief because, first of all, I don't know where to start. The insanity that is open carry, the hypocrisy and bald-faced, bold-type racism of the National Rifle Association, the ongoing carnage, the murder of black men and boys by police officers all over this country, the carnage in Dallas. I don't know where to start. I want to back up and start with John Crawford and Tamir Rice, an adult man and a 12-year-old boy shot down by police for the crime of having toy guns in their hands in open carry states, which was met with no pushback or protest from the National Rifle Association. And then in the last week, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, the horror of the murder, in my opinion, the murder of Philando Castile. And of course, that video that if you haven't seen, you should watch. We should all be forced to watch. The video made by Philando Castile's girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, as he sat in the seat next to her in that car, bleeding to death, with the officer who shot him on the outside of the car screaming and pointing a gun into the car, pointing the gun at Philando Castile, at Diamond Phillips' 4-year-old daughter. We could talk about all of that and the protests in Minnesota and the protests in Baton Rouge and the arrests and the disproportionate response and the carnage. It feels like 1968. I could talk about all of that, but I feel like I should shut the fuck up, frankly. Look around on Twitter, look around on Tumblr or social media, and what you see, and I think quite rightly, are a lot of African Americans objecting to white people making this about them, or about how they felt, or about how they reacted, or about what they think Black Lives Matter should do or do next, or what Black Lives Matter must embrace or disavow. And people have pointed out, and I think quite rightly, that maybe white people on social media and white people on plain old media should shut up and listen. And, as they say in Tumblr land, center the voices of African Americans in this. So I think that's what I'm going to do here today. Rather than me going into this and sharing how I feel and expressing my outrage, and I am indeed outraged, I want to invite my African-American listeners, and we know we have lots of African-American listeners, who have something to say, something that they would like broadcast in this space on my pathetic little, usually kind of upbeat, sex advice-y platform. If you have something to say about this that you would like the largely, overwhelmingly white listenership of the Savage Lovecast to hear, give us a call, 206-302-2064. At the end of the show every week, we take caller comments, responses, critiques, insights, and we assemble them together into a short montage, and we allow people to have their own say and speak back. And we're going to do that next week. So next week's end of the show montage will be the calls we get this week from African Americans who have something to say and would like it said here, would like it heard by my largely white audience. And we are just going to get out of your way, and we're going to listen. Instead of listening to me talk about it, we're going to listen to you talk about it. And I am interested in listening to what you have to say, and less interested in hearing what I have to say, frankly, about this. That number again, 206-302-2064. Give us a buzz. All right, coming up today on the micro edition of the Savage Lovecast, we have Elynah, Muslim blogger, sex writer, children's book author, to talk about sex negativity in the Muslim community. Important programming note, I recorded this interview with Elynah before the massacre in Orlando, so we don't address the issues of Islamophobia in the wake of Orlando or Islamic homophobia in relationship to Orlando during our convo. It's still a really great convo. And in the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast, which you can subscribe to at savagelovecast.com, we've got Parker Molloy here to talk about drag and the trans community. This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by stamps.com. Buy and print official U.S. postage using your own computer and your own printer. For a special offer, which includes a digital scale and up to $55 worth of free postage, go to stamps.com and enter SAVAGE. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/savage and entering the promo code SAVAGE. We want to thank audible.com for their support of the Savage Lovecast. For a free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. My name is Stacey. I live in San Diego, California, and I'm calling because earlier tonight I was using my boyfriend of a year's computer, Danger Zone, and I unintentionally, of course, snooped a little bit, and under a hidden folder called Taxes was screenshots of him and who I think is next, I don't really know. In the video they had recorded together, the video wasn't there, but the screenshots were there. They're super graphic and really sexual. Part of the problem, well, not problem, but part of the things I'm reacting to with this is, for one, him and I make videos. I've asked him numerous times if he's made them with exes, and he said no. And number two, a few of these screenshots were opened a month ago. We recently relocated out here to San Diego, and, you know, we've had a little bit of tumultuous issues around trust, but no real breach of trust. This just felt like inadvertently hidden from me. And so I guess I'm just calling because I'm just curious about your feedback. Some things it's better for the other partner not to know, but I do feel lied to in this case, and I'm kind of just, you know, feeling a little overwhelmed with my reaction. My plan moving forward is an open conversation with him about it, but I don't want him to feel like he can't share stuff with me, so I don't want to have an attack either. But I just feel kind of, you know, lied to and a bit confused about why he would lie to me, because I'm typically a pretty open person.
You don't want him to feel like he can't share stuff with you. You just want him to know that if he doesn't share stuff with you, you're going to snoop till you find it. He didn't inadvertently hide those files from you. He very vertently hid those files from you. You went snooping into a file labeled taxes, where he'd hidden away some private mementos that perhaps he occasionally likes to call up and have a wank about. I'm here from the future to tell you that the man you're with is going to occasionally masturbate about other people. Even if you're in a monogamous relationship and you guys successfully execute monogamy day in, day out for the next 50 fucking years, he's occasionally going to have a dirty thought about someone else. And so are you. And that's okay. And being able to acknowledge that to each other, that's actually healthy and a good place to get to in a long-term committed relationship, even a monogamous one, actually particularly a monogamous one, because then you're both freed of the responsibility of having to police each other for evidence of what you should just assume to be true. That sometimes he's going to think about or desire other people, whether he acts on that or not. Same goes for you. Allowing him through fantasy, through masturbation, through occasionally closing his eyes while you're giving him a blowjob and thinking thoughts, to go someplace else, to virtually cheat on you, to virtually obtain a little bit of that variety that we as humans are hardwired to seek in all aspects of our lives. That'll make your long-term committed monogamous relationship more stable, not less stable. All right, why would he lie to you? You're obviously into him. You're good giving him game. You were down for filming and making videos. Why would he tell you that he'd never done that with anyone else before? I don't know. Maybe he knows. Maybe when you confront him, he'll tell you. I can make a couple of guesses. Could be that he was worried, as so many people with a kink are, maybe this is his kink, that if he told you that this was sort of an established thing and he'd done it with other people, that would hurt your feelings, or you would feel like you were just being plugged into an existing erotic structure, even though, of course, you are, and we all are when we meet people and we work for them or don't work for them erotically. And he thought that would skeeve you out, to know that this thing that you two enjoyed doing so much together, he'd actually enjoyed doing with others. And so he withheld that information because he felt self-conscious about it or worried that you would have a meltdown about it and what it would mean and what it might mean. Obviously, you know what you know, and you want some assurances from him, and you need some reassurance that you're still number one. What you shouldn't do is continue to snoop. What you shouldn't do is tell him or order him to throw those files away, because he's just going to bury them deeper somewhere on his computer. And I would actually encourage him to do that. If you tell him to throw them away and he pretends to under duress, just bury them deeper or put them on a hard drive and hide it, because he has a right to his mementos and he has a right to his memories. And you don't get to edit his history. And you get to, I guess, traditionally in committed monogamous relationships, police his desires and his fantasies, and whether or not he's pressing mementos into the service of those fantasies. But it's a fool's errand. It just ruins whatever it is that you two have by pitting your connection and your sex life and the sex that you have when you guys are connected and it's popping against his fond memories of the sex he's had with other people. It's going to make you less appealing, because he's going to look at you and you're going to be the reason that he's in trouble, the reason he can't, the reason that he feels bad. And you don't want to be the reason he feels bad. You want to be the reason he feels great. And to be able to have you and have those screen grabs too, and when you're away or when you're tired, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and he can't go to sleep because he's horny, to open a couple of those images and bang one out, maybe next to a couple of screen grabs of you two, to flip through that Rolodex or Solodex, let him have it. It doesn't take anything away from you. He's had these images on his computer for however long you guys have been together, the entire time you've been together. And it only became a problem when you discovered them. You weren't neglected. You never felt that he wasn't attracted to you or he'd really rather be with his ex. It's only a problem now because you made it a problem by snooping. But you're not looking back over the course of your relationship, the entire time you've been together, and recognizing signs of why it wasn't working or what was wrong with your sexual connection. So there's nothing about him having and enjoying these images occasionally. It was a month ago you said he opened those files. There's nothing about that that harms your relationship in any way. So don't turn it into something that harms your relationship by attempting to police him around his screen grabs or his mementos or his past. He does, however, owe you an explanation about the lie.
Hey, Dan. I am a straight man in my 50s, widowed about 3 years ago. While not ready for a relationship, I was not willing to be lonely, so I went looking for just someone casual to, sex, friendship, that kind of stuff. Placed an ad, Craigslist, imagine that, and found somebody. We've been together about 8 months or so, and I think we've gotten much closer than either one of us planned on being. And we never promised each other exclusivity or any kind of fidelity, not even for health and safety reasons, but it just kind of happened that I've been exclusive and she is for the most part. There you go, been exclusive. She dropped on me a couple of days ago that she has actually been with other guys. She talks about how much she loves me. She talks about how much I mean to her. She talks about how great the sex is between us and how much more fulfilling and spiritual it is. But she was with a friend she hangs out with. It was just kind of a why not. She's divorced. She doesn't want to be in another relationship. She wants her freedom. So I think she figures that this is her freedom that she staked out and this is what she wants. She did not cheat on me because we have never declared that we will be exclusive. She's upset because she feels she hurt me. I've tried to do all the right things to say, I have no claim on you. We never claimed to be exclusive. And I try to be there to support her for how bad she feels that she might have hurt me, which means I can't acknowledge how much she's hurt me. How do I cope with this?
I wished you'd left a callback number, and I understand that you were very upset by the end of the call, and I ache for you, but I wish you'd left a callback number because I really want to ask what it is you need help coping with. You got what you were looking for. You got what you wanted from the universe, which was something casual. You said yourself you were not ready for a committed relationship of any sort. And you found someone for casual sex that was good, someone that you actually liked, and it was non-exclusive. Non-exclusive is basically what people mean by casual. Non-exclusive and casual means that person might be fucking other people. If that's not something that you can handle, that person fucking someone else, if that's going to devastate you emotionally, as this clearly has, then you aren't cut out for casual, non-exclusive, non-committed relationships. Obviously, you didn't anticipate that going in. Your wife died 3 years ago. You are a widow. My heart goes out to you. I am sorry for your loss. It seems to me, though, that you went flying into this space, not ready for a relationship, wanting something casual, wanting sex and intimacy in your life, without really thinking through what it would mean for you. Obviously, you didn't think it through. What it would mean for you emotionally if you were intimate with somebody on the regular and you really liked that person and they were fucking somebody else or somebody else's. Now you know something about yourself. You've learned something that you didn't know during your marriage or didn't need to know or have to know during your marriage, and you didn't realize going into this relationship, which is that casual and non-exclusive is not for you. Not something that you can handle. Maybe this is how you cope with it. You tell yourself that you have learned a valuable lesson, that good has come from this experience, including the experience of pain. Because now you know what it is you need and want. And what you need and want is for sex to come bundled with commitment and exclusivity. What you need and want is a monogamous commitment from the person that you're with. And I hope that you make a monogamous commitment and are willing to make a monogamous commitment to that person. I hope that you weren't fucking other women and having this kind of reaction when you found out that she was fucking other men. And I assume that you weren't, because you would have included that detail, I expect, because you seem like an honest and decent guy. And you seem like a guy who's not trying to let himself off the hook for what is kind of a tragicomedy of errors here. So what do you do? What do you do going forward? You own your pain. You don't want to make her feel bad, but you can't bottle this up. But you need to explain to her, and you need to accept yourself, that you stepped on a rake that you didn't know was sitting in the grass. You didn't see this pain coming. You didn't see this hurt coming. That this wasn't something that you anticipated. So there's no malice in what she did, but that doesn't mean that there's anything illegitimate about the pain that you are currently experiencing. Whether or not you two can continue to be together is a whole other conversation. Can you get past it? She did not betray you, but can you get past the hurt? And ... do what? Obviously, you can't continue being with her casually or non-exclusively. That if you're going to go forward with this relationship or enter into another relationship with some other woman, knowing what you know now about yourself, that relationship, either with the woman, this woman, or some woman to be named later, that relationship will have to be exclusive. Will have to be not casual. You are not emotionally cut out for casual sex. If you go to pieces when the person you're having casual sex with has casual sex with somebody who isn't you. I'm sorry you had to learn this about yourself through trial and painful error. But now you know it. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper. Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing those savings directly to the consumer. A Casper mattress provides long-lasting comfort and support, and I know this for a fact because me and my husband sleep on one every night. You can buy it easily online and completely risk-free. Casper offers free delivery and painless returns with a 100-day period, so you don't have to lie down in a showroom. And Casper's mattresses uphold the highest environmental production standards, and they're made right here in the USA. Get a Casper mattress for $500 for a twin or $950 for a king-size mattress. You can save an additional $50 as one of our listeners by going to casper.com/savage and entering the promo code SAVAGE. That's casper.com/savage and promo code SAVAGE. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, what's going on, Dan? My friend just recommended me to listen to your stuff, and I've got myself in a little situation. So basically, this girl, she's like a virgin thing and everything. She's like really cool. So like basically what happens is like I'm in the Marine Reserves, and she was telling me like, like we were making out and stuff on her bed, and she's like, I really want to have sex with you. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And she was in the middle of sex. She was really nervous. She was asking me these questions and like talking to make it less awkward. She was saying, hey, I want to know if you want to come camping with me this week. And I was like, well, I really can. I got to go to this AT thing, which is 2 weeks in the summer. And she was all, the desert, like, I just said the desert, like, no, I got to go to the desert because it's 29 Palms. Everyone just, refers to it as the desert. And she's like, Afghanistan? And, I was just in the moment, I just said yes. And her best friend was telling me, like 2 days later, like the one thing she hates is lying. And I'm really worried. I don't know how to go about it. I don't know how to explain it to her, because I really want things to work out with her.
I want to have 19-year-old straight Marine problems. I would trade my problems for your problems right now in a heartbeat. Okay, here's how you walk this back. This you can file under completely harmless lie. It's not like you let her believe that you were deploying to Afghanistan and so she was excited by that or felt sorry for you and then she fucked you and therefore lost her virginity to you perhaps under false pretenses. You were already fucking. You weren't just in the moment, you were in the girl when you said you had to go to the desert. Such hot dirty talk you two were engaged in at that moment, future plans. And she said Afghanistan and you said yes. And so it's not like you said yes to get in her pants. You were in her pants, you were in her. And you said yes. And it was a harmless white lie, flustered in the moment. And what was probably going on psychologically for both of you was it was sexier for her to think she was fucking this hot Marine who was about to deploy to a war zone, and it made you bigger, tougher, hotter, sexier. It put you in a kind of existential now, but literal then if you were actually deploying to Afghanistan, peril that made you momentarily more desirable. And you, I think, subconsciously sensing that that's kind of what was cranking her up a little at that moment was the thought of you not going for bonus training for a couple of weeks in the desert. You said yes because you understood that like this was in a way kind of dirty talk. And then you got into an improv-y headspace where you never say no. You shouldn't say no during dirty talk, just like you don't say no during improv. You say yes and so you said yes because there was something about the thought of you deploying that was arousing for her. And it was your job at that moment while you guys were having sex, while she was having sex for the first time, to keep the arousal thing going. And you didn't keep the arousal thing going by proposing to her. You didn't keep the arousal thing going by telling a malicious or harmful lie that filled her with false hopes or leveraged her on expectations or desires against her in any way. You just said yes when she said Afghanistan. And so you go to her and you say, I was just sort of carried away in the moment and said yes, that I was going to Afghanistan, but I'm actually going for 2 weeks of training and then I'll be back. And while this is, I think, a harmless lie that you told in the heat of the moment, you still got to fess up. You can't let her think you're in Afghanistan when you're just on training for a couple of weeks. So you got to walk this back. You got to come clean. But if she doesn't accept your apology, if she can't understand why that lie might have fallen out of your mouth at that particular moment, a relationship wasn't in the cards anyway, even if you hadn't have told that lie. And you can come out better, actually, at the end of this, if you take the right approach, which is to say to her, I'm really sorry. I don't know why that came out of my mouth like that. I was just really carried away and swept away by the moment and how sexy it was. And I didn't want to say no. And then I said yes. And This isn't who I am. I don't routinely lie to anyone, certainly not to someone that I'm attracted to. It was just a brain fart. And brain farts correlate very strongly with erections. Going to the post office is so old school. It's such a hassle taking trips there. That's why over 600,000 small businesses are already using Stamps.com to get postage right from their desks wherever they need it 24 hours a day. Stamps.com turns your computer and printer into a virtual post office. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package. Stamps.com is the better way to do your mailing and shipping. It's so easy to use and really convenient, and it lets you focus your time where you want on growing your business instead of on time-consuming trips to the post office. No wonder $2.6 billion in postage was printed just last year alone using Stamps.com. Right now, sign up for Stamps.com and use my last name, Savage, for this special offer, a 4-week trial plus $110 bonus offer, which includes postage and a digital scale. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com, click the mic, enter Savage.
Hi, Dan. Love the show. For some context to my question, I have a really problematic relationship with my mom. She has personal boundary issues ever since I was a kid. So, for example, things like slapping me on the ass, giving me big, sloppy, wet kisses, things that would consistently make me really uncomfortable, and she wouldn't stop doing these kinds of things when I asked her to. Eventually, I hit the big red button and blew up the relationship, and she has yet to talk to me again. But fast forward to now, there are little things that my amazing, beautiful, longtime girlfriend does that remind me of stuff my mom did. Things like a playful slap on the ass while I'm passing by her will sort of drum up these images, and they're so small and innocuous and harmless that it's hard to bring up, and I certainly don't want my girlfriend to stop giving me wet kisses or stop slapping me on the ass in a playful way. I brought it up before, but I was hoping maybe you could give some advice on how to rid my brain of this connection.
You say you ended your relationship with your mother. You confronted her about this stuff, her behavior, and she didn't take it seriously, and then there came a point where you just had to cut off contact with your mom, and it sounds like that was the right move. But you don't mention ever speaking with a counselor or a therapist about your mother and her lack of respect for your body, for your physical autonomy, or her lack of respect for appropriate boundaries, for the ways in which she regularly and routinely violated you. I think that might be a good place to start. If you've never spoken with somebody about this at length, never went and got your head shrunk, never talked to a counselor about it, go talk to a counselor about it, because you're obviously still carrying around this tension, these grooves your mother carved into you physically. You're still seized up, and your girlfriend touches you in a way that your mother used to touch you, and it just throws you way, way back. And maybe a therapist could help you with that. Listening to your call, I was thinking about how there's a couple of ways in which I don't like to be touched because I find them deeply unsexy and they throw me out of the moment. And they're sort of boner cyanide, I call them, and just it ruins it for me. And so my husband of all these years, he just doesn't touch me in those couple of places. But they're very non-critical places to not be touched. They're easily avoided if the ways in which I couldn't be touched was you can't slap my ass, or you can't initiate contact in that way, or you can't give me a sloppy kiss. That would be a problem for my husband, because those are kind of central to, physical contact between long-term intimate sexual partners. To take out sloppy kissing because there was this trauma in my life, that would deprive my husband of something that may matter to him, that he may need, that I wouldn't want to deprive him of. My couple of hang-ups deprive him of something that's just not that important. So I think you should work on this for your lovely, loving girlfriend's sake, and try to create, perhaps with the help of a counselor, new associations between these behaviors, this kind of touch and your feelings, carve new grooves. And your girlfriend can potentially help with that. And again, I would touch base with the counselor about this, talk with the counselor about this, run this suggestion or idea by a counselor, that at those moments when she wants to slap your ass or engage in sloppy kissing, maybe all you need to hear at those moments is, I'm not your mother. And that sounds awful, maybe a little counterintuitive, because what happens when you're touched that way is it like invokes your mother. And it calls your mother to mind in this way that's really unpleasant. And perhaps, and this is just me spitballing it, but maybe it would help in those moments to be reminded explicitly by your girlfriend that she is not this other person. And maybe at those moments, she asks your permission instead of just lunging or going for it. She has the impulse to slap your ass, then she slaps your ass. You can insert something in between that impulse and that action, which is use your fucking words. That there are going to be times when if you just say, I really want to slap your ass, then you can brace for it and you can be in the moment. Because what happens, I think, for you partly is you're standing there, you're doing the dishes, you're walking by, and you're not thinking about your girlfriend. You're not thinking about your relationship. You're not engaged with her. And then there comes that physical contact and it throws you all the way back. It reminds you of, you have this physical conditioned response to it. And it just, boom, you're with your mom. You're at your mom. Your mom is present in your mind. And if your girlfriend could just say to you in between the impulse to slap your ass and the slapping of your ass, I want to slap my boyfriend's ass, or I want to slap your ass. And then you're engaged with her. You're hearing her voice. You turn and you make eye contact with her, and she ain't your mom. And at that moment where you guys are really engaged, because if the first moment of engagement is the physical contact, is that feeling, that physical touch, that's mom. But if the first moment of contact is negotiating that physical touch and engaging and locking eyes with and communicating with your girlfriend, maybe mom won't be present. Maybe mom won't be in the room. She won't even have to say, I'm not your mom. She just has to say, oh my God, I really want to slap that hot ass. You turn around, you make eye contact, and you wiggle your butt at her and say, go ahead. And I bet if you roll that way, if you can get your girlfriend to roll that way with you at those moments, out of consideration for your trauma, for what you were subjected to by this toxic parent, it'll carve that new groove. It'll help you be in the moment with your girlfriend instead of thrown back into traumatic moments with your mom. Good luck. Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more. Audiobooks are great to listen to when you're driving, on the subway or bus, doing chores around the house, or at the gym. For our listeners, Audible is offering a free 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/savage and browse their unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. One audiobook you might want to consider is not an audiobook, but a stand-up performance, a show, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, written by and performed by the comedian Mike Birbiglia. Comedian, filmmaker, and film star Mike Birbiglia. It is hilarious. He is hilarious. If you haven't already heard or listened to My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, you can via Audible for free. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage. That's audible.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm a physical therapist in the Seattle area, and my specialty is on pelvic dysfunction and pain. One thing I was really hoping you could clarify for me is an issue that I have pretty frequently, which is confronting religion and the pelvis. So a lot of the women I work with have had pelvic trauma or injuries, or, simply have pain during intercourse because of muscular dysfunction. But when I ask them to maybe do some muscle stretching or desensitization or, working on their own muscles at home, I run into this barrier, which is that they have a religious objection to touching their own genitals. So I am not religious at all. I actually fundamentally don't really get the concept, and this is where I struggle to empathize with these patients. And I know you have a background in growing up in a very religious family. So could you, for me, clarify what is and it's not just Catholic. I've worked with women who are Muslim, women who are Mormon. It seems to span all religions, and I can't figure out why women in particular are not entitled to map out and own their own genitals, even for a medical purpose. I strongly encourage patients to masturbate to help with their pelvic pain, but, even aside from that, they won't even, take ownership of their own anatomy, and sometimes are even too uncomfortable to use a mirror to look at scar tissue or to look at the muscles I'm trying to show them. So any tips you have on interacting with, in a sex-positive way, in a respectful way with religious patients as a medical provider would be much appreciated.
Joining me by phone to help field this question, Elynah is a Pakistani-Canadian ex-Muslim sex blogger and children's book author. You can and should follow her on Twitter at @NiceMangoes, and you can read her blog at nicemangoes.blogspot.com. Before we get to the question, Elynah, I've been a longtime follower and admirer of yours. I'm curious about Nice Mangoes.
Well,
I'm guessing what that might refer to, but how did that become your Twitter handle and the name of your blog?
Well, actually, it started as a blog solely focused on Pakistani sexuality, and mangoes are like the national fruit of Pakistan, and a perfect euphemism for something that is too taboo to discuss among Pakistanis. So that's how it came about.
Well, it's terrific. And you wrote a book called My Cha-Cha is Gay, which is a children's book, kind of in the spirit of Heather Has Two Mommies, but for a Pakistani readership. Can you tell us a little bit about the book before we get to the question?
Yeah, it's set in Pakistan. It's about a little boy and his uncle who he loves very much. But it's seen through the little boy's eyes, and he's confused about why some people don't treat his uncle nicely just because he's gay. So it's basically the boy trying to understand this and ending with the message that love belongs to everyone.
Okay, pivoting to the question. So physical therapist specializes in pelvic pain, has women come to her who have pelvic pain, and they need to take her advice, and it might help them to examine their own genitalia, to touch their own genitalia, to masturbate might help them with their pelvic pain. And she has these women who are coming to her because they're Muslim or Mormon or Catholic. They have these religious hang-ups or prohibitions against touching their own genitalia. Do you have any advice for how, as an ex-Muslim sex blogger, how to discuss these issues with these clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy situation. It's a tricky one for sure, especially if she doesn't come from that kind of a religious background, so it can make her feel uncomfortable. I can understand that. But I think the best that we can hope for is just to shake that belief a little bit. Sometimes you can't really get people to stop believing in untruths, but you can provide them with information that can plant that seed of doubt. So, giving them literature or pamphlets to show that no harm can come to you from simply just masturbation, I think that'd be a great place to start. And secondly, I think for her to arm herself with knowledge about the kinds of beliefs and fears that she's up against would, do a lot in terms of giving her the confidence to confront why these women are having an issue with it. And in terms of Islam, there are some emerging, more sex-positive schools of thought. So maybe looking into those and pointing her patients towards those would be helpful for them because, I'm a non-believer myself, so it's hard for me to say this too convincingly because I would not want to read it about liberal Islam. But anyways, for people who are already believers, it can help to kind of lead them to a path where they can find some wiggle room within the framework that they're used to operating. And maybe that's where the unraveling of their beliefs can begin.
And this isn't a problem that's unique to Islam. I'm coming at you from ex-Catholic land.
Mm-hmm.
And the Catholic Church and the Catechism and the directives from Mission Control Pope land, they condemn masturbation using the exact same terms that they condemn homosexuality with. That it's morally disordered, it's intrinsically evil. That's how they describe masturbation. And most Catholics, it seems the overwhelming majority of Catholics, just kind of ignore that. Even Catholics who embrace what the church has to say about homosexuality being intrinsically disordered and evil just ignore, conveniently, what it says about masturbation because they don't want to give up masturbation, even if they want to not give up hating on gay people.
Mm-hmm.
Is it so? The prohibition on Islam, perhaps on female self-pleasure or masturbation generally, isn't unique to Islam, but right now, does it have more force in Islam than it does in Catholic land?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
Well, I think Islam commands an orthodoxy that no other religion currently does, unless you're practicing Westboro Baptist style,
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very literalist kind of religion where it's an all or nothing. However, people have made their own paths within it. But mostly what we're dealing with is fundamentalist, literalist interpretations. And that's why, because people haven't created that space between their secular modern life and their faith. So for them, faith is their life and a way of life. And we're trying for that space to happen between mosque and state.
Mm-hmm.
But it just doesn't exist yet, unfortunately. And people like me who speak out against get death threats, rape threats, and have to be anonymous.
I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that. For me, it was, I was raised very, very Catholic. My dad was a Catholic deacon. My mom was a Catholic lay minister. I went to the seminary. And my sexuality, when it began to reveal itself to me, brought me into conflict with my faith. And I was like, well, I can have one or the other here and not both. And it wasn't like I chose my sexuality because I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't run from it. And in a way, my sexuality relieved me of my faith. And it was a relief. Was it similar for you? What was your journey to ex-Muslim like? What was it, a sexuality issue that brought you into conflict with your faith and then relieved you of it? Or was it something else?
No, it was more the inequality of men and women. I mean, however, I did consider for me, I'm a straight woman, but LGBT people matter to me a lot. Issues matter to me a lot. So obviously I did, that did factor into my unraveling. But just being a woman, having a vagina and being Muslim is hard. So, I think that then once you start reading up on it and reading the scriptures, less and less of it makes sense.
I'm not familiar with any scripture that you can read closely and it makes sense. Book of Mormon, the Talmud, the Bible, the Quran. Like, if you really dive into any holy text, you're going to find plenty of holes.
Exactly. If you're willing to look at it honestly, and that's why so many atheists say that reading the scripture for them was really how their atheism began, because they just couldn't make sense of it anymore.
That's how Julia Sweeney lost her faith. Julia Sweeney wrote, and then God said ha. She was an SNL cast member. She was very publicly a practicing Catholic, and then she went to a Bible study course, read the Bible, and it all fell apart. And now she's not a militant atheist, just a vocal one, which is what militant is, what anybody who's religious calls somebody who's an atheist who doesn't keep their mouth shut. They're militant.
Exactly.
Circling back to the caller, it's not her job to talk these people out of their faiths or to poke holes in their faith or to encourage them to read the scriptures and maybe walk away from it in the best interest of their sexual pleasure or ability to touch themselves. I assume you're still, in your family and you still interact with people who do believe.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way for this doctor to advocate for these women's vaginas without necessarily causing conflict for them with their faiths?
As I said, just providing basic information is a great starting point, because some of the misconceptions are truly unbelievable. Many people write to me and think that masturbation is slowly killing them and, making them lose energy and making them be unable to move. So just the most simplest information can start to shake these beliefs, and just to know what kinds of things she's up against. I mean, the fact that some people believe that masturbation is adultery, so because it's not, it's extramarital sexual activity. So
we had a right-wing pastor here in town who argued that men who masturbated were guilty of gay sex because they were touching a penis.
Right. It's kind of like that, right? So it helps to know what you're gonna be talking about once you confront these issues.
And there's a lot of data out there that shows it's healthy. Like male masturbation, again, there's just a big new study coming out that shows that men who ejaculate regularly, men who masturbate regularly, are less at risk of developing prostate cancer.
Exactly, yeah.
Draining the pipes.
Right, and then there's the belief that people think their hands will get pregnant. Some Muslims do believe that in on the day of judgment, your hands will be pregnant and speak out against your sexual deeds with them. So, I mean,
I've never heard that. That's a new one for me, even. I'm going to have to lie down on the floor for a while in the podcast studio and think about pregnant hands at Judgment Day. Elynah, she's a Pakistani Canadian ex-Muslim sex blogger, children's book author. Follow her on Twitter at Nice Mangoes. Read her blog, nicemangoes.blogspot.com. And I understand you're starting a podcast.
Yes, I'd love to have you on.
I'd love to come on.
Oh my gosh.
The podcast circle jerk is never ending. You come on mine, I'll come on yours.
Right. It's fantastic.
Where can people find your podcast?
SoundCloud.com/polite conversations.
Thank you so much for jumping on the phone. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Hi, Dan. I live in Houston, a straight male. Been married for almost 8 years, 7 years. And my wife cheated on me a couple weeks ago. But the first thing I found out about was that she was lying to me about going to the bar frequently all through the day. And then I asked her if there was anything else, and she said no. And the next day, her phone was buzzing in her lap, and I unlocked it, and it was a guy sexting her. And I found out that she was having an affair, both sexual. She said it wasn't fulfilling. She only met him up twice, and it sucked, but also a psychological affair. And then a few days later, when I asked her to never go back to that bar she had been frequenting, where she also met the guy and also did some coke, she decided she needed to go out to see her very good friend. And when I tracked her iPhone, because I couldn't trust her, that's where she was. But she made me drag it out of her. And then all the shit hit the fan, and I took our 6-year-old daughter and changed the plans for the weekend. Not that I deprived her. Our daughter's still going to spend time with her family over the summer and my family over the summer like we originally planned. I just didn't give her the chance to say goodbye because I thought she had a coke problem because of all the lying. I don't think she has a coke problem anymore, but she's still lying to me. This is over. This is like a week later, and we had kind of a bad night after having some good communication and good face-to-face time. And I unlocked her phone again, and she had been texting with another guy from Tinder. And she says it's just flirting and I need to get out of her fucking business. And she left tonight. And I don't know what to do. We have a 6-year-old daughter.
Your wife either isn't the person you believed her to be all those years ago when you married her, and then a couple years later when you decided to scramble your DNA together with hers, or your wife is having some sort of emotional or psychotic break and throwing herself into drugs and dicks, and this is evidence of some kind of breakdown, or she's slamming her hand down on the self-destruct button by just hitting adultery so hard right now, hitting infidelity, hitting cheating so hard right now, and not making any real effort to hide it from you. And yeah, you shouldn't snoop, but yours is one of those cases where snooping is retroactively exonerated. You had a right to know these things. You have a right to know these things. I've spoken frequently, constantly on the show, elsewhere, all around the world, about how our default setting when an infidelity or an affair comes to light should be working through it, getting through it. That the expectation culturally should be that an affair is something that a couple in a long-term committed relationship, particularly with their children involved, can get past because they're so common. Men and women cheat at increasingly the same rate men and women cheat. And so almost all committed long-term relationships will involve infidelity at some point. Somebody's going to get cheated on at some point. And if we define an infidelity as always a relationship extinction level event, we're basically saying at the beginning of every relationship or before any relationship can even get off the ground, we've written its death warrant because of our expectations around how we're obligated to react when an infidelity is exposed. That said, in this case, I don't see how you avoid taking your daughter and calling a lawyer and initiating divorce proceedings. Because your wife's affairs, the drug use, the alcohol abuse, it seems, the multiple affairs, all of that constitutes together a fundamental rejection of your marriage, of you, of your family. And I don't think you have to stick around for years and years and years of that. I don't think the onus falls on you to process or work through it. The onus falls on her. And it may clarify her mind, it may help her see what she has to do to make it up to you or to salvage this marriage if she gets a letter from your lawyer about you initiating proceedings to end this marriage.
This is a comment for the woman in episode 506 that went to the sex club and had a great time, but a negative reaction to her partner touching another woman. Sister, I am you 9 months ago, having spent the last 9 months doing the exact opposite of Dan's excellent advice. I've been pushing myself into situations that I'm not ready for or comfortable with, and I've been flailing around in an extreme trial and error process that has actually resulted in me developing an anxiety disorder for the first time in my life. Have we had some really awesome experiences? Yes. So there is hope. But was it worth the price? No. In fact, today I'm off to my first appointment with a psychologist ever. Hearing your call and Dan's response made me cry and say, what have I done to myself? So listen to Dan, put your pleasing perfectionist tendencies in check, slow down, and have boundaries.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling in reference to episode 506, the woman who wanted her husband to get his hands off of that woman's boobs. Oh my gosh, I have the same head-heart dilemma going on in my non-monogamous situation. So been non-monogamous for about 4 years now, and I'm still in a pretty constant battle with my head believing it should be one way and my heart reacting a different way. So I don't think her experience is so abnormal, but I differ with the advice. So my thought is that non-monogamy is a skill, and if I wanted to play the piano, I wouldn't sit down and say, oh, wow, this is too hard. I'll just get up and sit down again in a couple of months, and maybe it'll be easier. It doesn't work like that. I think you have to try it. You have to figure out your shit, work through it, and keep moving forward, not just wait for it to be a better time. So non-monogamy is a skill. That's what I think.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling in response to the woman in episode 506 who said that her partners were having a hard time with her tiny dog being on the bed. I have a dog. It's not a teacup, but my partner and I have trained the dog to go to a sex mat, a little carpet on the floor when we're having sex. At first, she would be annoying and be sniffing and wanting to jump on us, but we would just stop what we were doing, pick her up, and put her on the mat. And yeah, that made for an awkward few times, but now since then, if we start getting a little too involved with one another, she just exits the bed all on her own and goes and sits on the mat until we're done. So maybe your caller could try that and not have to exile her poor pup from the bedroom.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you'd like to record a question or a comment for a future show, please give us a buzz, 206-302-2064. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow Parker Molloy on Twitter at Parker Molloy. Follow Elynah on Twitter at Nice Mangoes. Enter my amateur porn film festival. Go to humpfilmfest.com for information about entering Hump. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks